Hello and welcome back to Mastering Data Visualization with D3.js. In today's video, the first of Section 5, we're going to take a look at interactivity and animations. In this section, we're going to see how to add interactivity with event listers, how to use animations to smooth our transitions and add tooltips, how to pan around and zoom in on data, how to select data from a set using brushes, and finally, how to drag and drop data, manipulating it on the fly. In today's video, we're going to look at event listeners, the building blocks of all of the different kinds of interactivity we're going to be doing in this section. In this video, we're going to take a look at adding different kinds of event listeners to our data and our plots, how to use transitions to smooth animations between different kinds of visualizations, and how to use easings to apply gentle interpolations between changes in our data. Let's dive right in and take a look at a set of data. So here you can see our chord layout showing the trade between different provinces that we examined earlier in Section 3. In this video, we're going to add some animation here to highlight different bands here. Let's take a look at our code. So this is our same old plot chord function that we examined earlier in Section 3. And everything here is exactly what we saw earlier, except for one extra line here. When we add our chords using those ribbons, we're actually going to add an extra bit of information, this class of trade. And we're going to make sure that each of these ribbons is given the trade class. That's going to be important because we're next going to use this function here called add mouseover to select all of these trade classed objects and apply a mouseover effect. So using the simple on, we can say when the mouse passes over each of these trade classed objects, apply this function. Select them and set their opacity to 0.5. So let's try this now. So you can see that doesn't return anything, but now when we pass over these objects, they set their opacity to 0.5. I've set all of these things to have half opacity just by passing over them. And if we select one of these objects, we can actually see, if we take a look here at the event listeners, we've now added a mouse over, and its handler is that little function we've written. So you can see what it does is set these things to have partial opacity, but it's not really a useful thing to have it stick around. So if we apply this and then have it so that every time you mouse over something, it permanently gets set opaque, that's not a particularly useful thing. And what we can do is add another event here. Mouse out is when the mouse pointer moves outside of this object. And we can simply set the opacity back to 1. So if we do that, we can call mouse over and then add mouse out. Now it goes semi-transparent and back. The transitions get reversed when the mouse leaves that object. So now you can see it's actually highlighting which one our mouse is hanging over. You can imagine this is a useful ability to have, to be able to select data like this. And later in this section, this is really going to be the building blocks of everything we do in terms of adding interactivity. Now, you can see though, when I go in and out here, it goes instantly from 50% opaque to 100% opaque and back again. You might want that to animate, though, in a much smoother, more kind of organic fashion. And we can actually do this using transitions. You can see here, I've added this object here called T, a transition, and it has an easing associated with it as well as a duration. Let's see what happens when I use this transition. So now what I've done is I've said to D3, when you make this change, do it over a finite amount of time. Don't do it instantaneously. And ease into it linearly. So step between 0.5 and 1 in a linear fashion over about a millisecond. And so now you can see, watch what happens when I mouse in and mouse out here. You can see, instead of instantaneously flashing to perfectly transparent, it transitions. And you can also see this error that I caught if I come in and out here quickly enough. That's because I'm going in and out of this object faster than this transition allows. So in order to do this safely, you actually have to add a try-catch statement in your mouse over event in order to catch whether or not you're still in the process of a transition and what to do in that case. In this case, you'd probably just want to allow it to complete as usual.